Yeah, yes, it really happened. It wasn't some wild fantasy dream that you were having. The Grizzlies really just completed one of the biggest and best comebacks in NBA playoff histories. So, guess what? We're going to have that covered and we're going to talk about it coming up on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On Grizzlies podcast, coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am your host today, DeMichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal. I'm riding solo. Sean Coleman is off today, and you're stuck here with me. But I'm up here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, covering the game. And I mean, what a game that was last night. The Grizzlies completed one of the biggest, one of the comebacks we have ever seen in the NBA playoffs. But first, we thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen, one of your listens each and every day. Make sure you're listening or tuning in on YouTube, subscribing, and all of that good stuff. But we're also available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast app. Locked On Grizzlies is there. So make sure you're leaving 5-star reviews. Make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're commenting and staying engaged with us. But wow. All I can say is wow. Games into this series. And this game easily is the wildest one. This is probably the wildest game of the entire playoff stretch so far. The Grizzlies came back from 26 points down to defeat the Minnesota Timberwolves in game 3. And coming back from 26 points down doesn't even do it justice. For those that watched the game, you saw it basically was like the Grizzlies came back twice. And I just talked with some players, a few days ago about, in basketball and really just in sports in general, when you come back from a big deficit, the energy that it takes to come back is almost exhausting in itself. So the fact that the Timberwolves responded to that first comeback from the Grizzlies and the Grizzlies came back again, that says a lot about this team. So how did it happen? First quarter, Timberwolves jump out to a big lead, dominant first quarter, and you look up, it's 12-0. 12-0 start. Patrick Beverley is doing the too little sign. He's going at John Morant. First couple buckets of the game, and it was an interesting thing. Being there in the presence of the Target Center, you could tell. I could tell that they missed playoff basketball. That place was so loud. It was rocking. I couldn't hear myself talking, which, has only happened for me before at football games. But this was a basketball game, and I couldn't hear myself talking. I knew what I was saying, but I couldn't hear it. The place was rocking. Patrick Beverley was engaged. Karl Anthony Towns blocking shots, screaming. The Timberwolves looked like they were on a mission. But then again, big lead. They come out, just guns blazing. Next thing you know, they're up 47-21 in the second quarter. And the Grizzlies went on their run. Grizzlies closed the second quarter on a 23-4 run. A lot of that was Desmond Bane just nailing three-pointer after three-pointer, just keeping the Grizzlies in it, just keeping them afloat, to the point where the Grizzlies were down 7 points at the half. Keep in mind, like I just said, they were down 26 points in that second quarter. Desmond Bane kept them afloat. They got within 7, 51-44 at the half. So there was a lot of momentum riding this direction. People were saying, they've trimmed the deficit. They have their chance. Boom. The Timberwolves hit them in the mouth again. Third quarter, it looked like a carbon copy for the most part of that first quarter. And I think a lot of people just lost hope at that point, because all your game when you saw the second quarter comeback and then boom, 28-10 run from the Timberwolves in the third quarter. Once again, biggest lead was 26 in the first quarter. I mean, the second quarter, early in the second quarter. Now they were back up 25, 3 minutes to go in the third quarter, 79-54 game. I mean, at this point, it's over, right? Right? No, it wasn't. The Grizzlies, just like in the second quarter, but even better this time, answered with an even bigger time, 21-0 run to tie the game, 26-2 run overall to take the lead. And they didn't look back at that point. Brandon Clark closed it. Desmond Bane, Morant, big buckets down the stretch. They all chimed in this effort. And 26-2 run. Overall, the Grizzlies ended the game on a 50-16 run. I'll say it again. The Grizzlies ended the game on a 50-16 run. Just crazy. I mean, one of the biggest comebacks that you will ever see. And it's that because it didn't happen over one stretch. The Grizzlies were down 26 points early in the second quarter. Then they make a 23-4 run. How often do you see a team make a 23-4 run just to end up back down 25 points and then make a 26-2 run after making a 23-4 run 2 quarters early? It was unfathomable. I mean, and keep in mind, we're talking about the Timberwolves start the game on a 12-0 run. Timberwolves start the third quarter 28-2 run. They made their runs as well. Grizzlies, the defense locked in. Defense locked in for the Grizzlies late in that fourth quarter. They completely stifled Minnesota. Karl Anthony Towns was just out of the game plan at that point. Anthony Edwards got hobbled early in the game. He wasn't as aggressive as I thought, he had been earlier in the series. So maybe that played a role in it. D'Angelo Russell was cooking early, kind of slowed him down, and the Grizzlies took over. So I think, just looking back at this game, this is one of those type wins where you look back and it can be gut-wrenching for the Timberwolves. Gut-wrenching because from the Grizzlies' perspective, you had this game lost twice. And they talked about it. John Morant and other players, Xavier Tillman before the game, they talked about wanting to steal these games in Minnesota, wanting to win in Minnesota. If they win in Minnesota, they get back home court advantage. That's what they did in this game. But I mean, the Timberwolves came out with so much energy. I can't understate that enough just watching, how they were engaged on the bench. And even Desmond Bane said it. Desmond Bane said that the Grizzlies had to get their energy up. He felt like, just from the way they were carrying themselves at certain parts of the first half, they weren't as locked in as they have been known to be. And there were stretches, where we saw that. I mean, the Timberwolves had an answer for everything that the Grizzlies were doing. And the Timberwolves, they were locked in defensively. Let's not understate how locked in the Timberwolves were on defense. But this is one of the best wins. I've said this a few times, but this is one of the best wins in Grizzlies franchise history. This is one of those type wins. I mean, this 26-point comeback, it's the largest for the Grizzlies in the playoffs. It ties the franchise record overall, regular season and playoffs combined. But again, what made this comeback special is it basically happened twice. And I mean, it's one thing for us not to understand how this happened. Taylor Jenkins is a man who has answers for everything. Just over the past 4 months that I've been at the Commercial Appeal and, covering the Grizzlies day in and day out, every single day, every single press conference, every single pregame shoot around with Taylor Jenkins, he has an answer for everything. After this game, Taylor Jenkins basically said, I don't know how we did it. He didn't even know how this happened. This was insane. I mean, this is one of those wins, Grizzlies fans, you should you go to YouTube and you look at it a couple or TNT if you recorded it. Just rewatch it because this is one of those games, that this will probably won't happen again. Probably won't happen again. But from a less exciting perspective, talking with Taylor Jenkins after the game, he did say he wasn't super happy with it. I mean, just like the Grizzlies made those two big runs to win the game, they put themselves in bad positions in the first and third quarters to have to dig out of those holes. He's probably going to look at that a little bit more going into that next game, and that's what you expect the coach, to do. Talking with him after the game, he didn't seem as excited, as the players were. John Morant was uplifted, even though he didn't have his typical night, shooting 5 of 18 from the field. Tyus Jones, they felt upbeat. Desmond Bane, they all had a sort of a relief feel to them, but not so much Taylor Jenkins. So he's been a coach, and he's been a pretty good coach in this series with all the adjustments that he has made. And we're going to talk more about, those adjustments and specific players who have impacted those adjustments for the Grizzlies. We're talking Desmond Bane, Brandon, Tyus Jones. Each of those guys and more had big stretches in game 3. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you about Truebill, because with Truebill, you know how with these free trials, they get you. These free trials get you because they were without your consent. And at the end of the day, it's a business scam. It's a business scam out to get you. And don't let these greedy corporations, pocket your money. How do you do that? Download Truebill to take control of your subscription. See, on average, people can save up to about $720 a year. And it's not just the renewals. We point out the renewals. It's not just them getting you with the renewals. You might have an ex who is still using your Netflix subscription, or you might have just straight up forgotten about one of your subscriptions. Truebill can take care of all of that for you. So don't fall for these subscription scams. Start canceling today. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. So again, that's Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Now I want to talk to you about Built Bar. Built Bar, and most of the common listeners here on Locked On Grizzlies, what my favorite Built Bar is. It's white chocolates, cookies, and cream all day long. But we got milk brownie, you got coconut, you got coconut almond. Built Bar has low calorie, high protein candy bars, and they're better than your typical candy bars because they're a healthier option. And Sean Coleman, my co-host, who's not here today, he talks a lot about the Built Bar Puffs. So let's talk about the Built Bar Puffs in place of Sean Coleman today. Because if you haven't tried the Built Bar Puffs, you're missing out. You're missing out on one of the best tasting Built Bar options, because the Puffs, they're protein infused with marshmallows, so they're a little fluffy, and it's not just the protein bar. It's covered in 100% real chocolate. So go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. So again, that's built.com and put in the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. So the Grizzlies won this game like they won game 2 in a way, with depth, but it was different. It wasn't, Xavier Tillman coming up out of nowhere in some crazy role. Let's go back to the first quarter. We talked about that first quarter, right? That same first quarter, Jaren Jackson Jr. picked up 2 fouls. John Morant picked up 2 fouls. It's 2 of your best players right there. 2 fouls early on in the game. The Grizzlies once again face foul trouble directly in the face. This game, certain players carried the Grizzlies in stretches, and it goes to show the depth again. Desmond Bane in the first half, 16 points, 5 made 3-pointers. He was lights out. He made 7 threes overall. He scored 26 points. Desmond Bane, I think after the game, Charles Barkley said that Desmond Bane is becoming his favorite player. He said, I think this kid, Bane, is becoming my favorite player to watch in the NBA. How can you not like the way he plays? His footwork has gotten so sound just watching Desmond Bane and how he is added to his game. Let me explain. We all know Desmond Bane can shoot the three. Yeah, I mean, he can shoot the three-pointer. And he's not just a spot-up three-point shooter. This is how he separates himself from the typical, spot-up three-point shooters who get to a spot, set their feet, and make shots. Because he can do that. We saw that his rookie season. Now Desmond Bane has added the pull-up three-pointer. In transition, when he dribbles up the court, he'll pull up for three. He added the side step three where he pump fakes the ball, he shows the ball, and he takes a step, dribbles, and nails that three-pointer. But the best one, the smoothest one that I like the most, and the most unguardable one, is the step back that he has in his bag now, where he takes, two smooth steps back and knocks down the three. We saw that in this game as well, and that's the most unguardable one. But Desmond Bane, he's locked in. He looks like a star. John Morant is a star. Jaren Jackson, gets a lot of pub. He's fourth year. Desmond Bane looks like a star. I think more people are catching on to that. The consistency that he gives this team as a three-point shooter, because we've all talked about how much they need him to shoot from three-point range. The consistency that they get from Desmond Bane is as important as probably anything from an offensive perspective on this team. And he did it again. So in the second half, we talked much about the lineups yet. So the starting lineup in game 3, first time in this postseason, Steven Adams was, switched out of the lineup. In place was Kyle Anderson. Kyle Anderson started for Steven Adams, and Kyle Anderson was the initial matchup Karl Anthony Towns. So we saw how that worked out. Basically, when he got Karl Anthony Towns on the perimeter, anytime Cat tried to put the ball on the floor, help defenders came, and they defended him well. As a team, the Grizzlies held their own defending him. But in the second half, another adjustment was made. Kyle Anderson didn't start the second half. It was Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark has been the best big man for the Grizzlies in this series, and he had his best game. 20 points, 8 rebounds, and solid all-around play from Brandon Clark. But he's averaging over 15 points in this series. He's averaging over 15 points. I mean, Jaren Jackson's averaging around 11. He's dealt with some foul trouble. But Brandon Clark, third quarter, fourth quarter, big shot after big shot, offensive rebounds, floaters. He was one of the biggest factors in the Grizzlies getting back into this game. Brandon Clark's activity, I mean, the Timberwolves are a super active team. And he's been the perfect balance. We talked about the differences when you get Steven Adams, when you get Brandon Clark. Both of them bring you that offensive rebounding, but he has a little more lateral agility, a little more quickness than Steven Adams. That kind of works when you're playing a team, like the Timberwolves, who like to play at such a, frantic pace and speed. Brandon Clark is just a better fit, and we're seeing that. He has been huge for this team every single game. Brandon Clark has brought it. Tyus Jones, he was the other one in this game. Tyus Jones, and he only played 14 minutes. Let's because we talked about that too. 40-minute game today. So you had to find those minutes for Tyus because he's been too good. Not just in the postseason, but in the regular season. Tyus Jones was just too good to keep off the floor. And boy, were they glad they had him on the floor in this game. Fourth quarter, during the comeback, Grizzlies, John Morant has to go to the bench for a little bit. This is during the 21-0 run, the 26-2 run. John Morant goes to the bench. Tyus Jones makes a big three-pointer, bottoms, 83-80. The Grizzlies are down 3 points at this point. And then John Morant comes back in the game. Tyus Jones is still in the game. John Morant makes a beautiful left-hand pass to the corner to Desmond, 83-83. Then the Grizzlies tie the game up at 83. Next possession, the Grizzlies take the lead, but the ball was in Tyus Jones' hands, and he's dribbling, shot clock going down, He pulls up for the three-pointer, nails it. Two big three-pointers made in that fourth quarter. Tyus Jones was the only player, this includes Brandon Clark, was the only player off the bench who finished with a positive plus minus. He finished +6, and he only played 14 minutes. Tyus Jones' minutes were as big as anyone's minutes in this game, and he has been consistent. And he's an Apple Valley High School kid, which is around 20 minutes from the Target Center here in Minneapolis. So this was big for him, just doing this. And as Ja Morant, said in the post-game press conference, this is his hood. Minneapolis, this is his hood. And, we thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listening. Next, make sure you checked out Locked On Now podcast. So nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from local experts, free and available wherever you get your podcast. But yeah, just wrapping up that point, Desmond Bane, Brandon Clark, Tyus Jones, they were three of the biggest pieces to getting this comeback victory. Bane tied a career high, 7 3-pointers. He was the most consistent Grizzlies player in this game, 26 points. Brandon Clark started the second half. He had a big, interesting convo with Taylor Jenkins going into the half, and Taylor Jenkins basically told him, you're going to start, but just do what you've been doing. He did what he's been doing, 20 points, 8 rebounds. He's been the best Grizzlies big man, most consistent Grizzlies big man in this series. And then Tyus Jones, back home, 11 points off the bench, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 for 3 from three-point range, and the 2 big three-pointers in the fourth quarter to put the dagger in the Timberwolves and give the Grizzlies their first lead of the game. So, yeah, it was a great game, but, there's more to look forward to now. The Grizzlies are up 2-1. The series is not over by a long shot. Listening to the Timberwolves players talk, especially Patrick Beverley and D'Angelo Russell, they still like their chances. So we're going to talk about, what's coming up next in the game 4 here in Minneapolis. But before we get to game 4 in Minneapolis, springtime is here. It's spring, so the sun's about to start shining bright. So I need you to go over to Shady Rays and get your sunglasses, because Shady Rays offers you the best features for sunglasses that are a fraction of those $200 sunglasses that you fear. Polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. See, Shady Rays also has a protection program. So if you lose your sunglasses, Shady Rays will send you a new pair, no matter how you lost them. And they also help out in other areas as well. 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. So you head over right now to shadyrays.com and use the code LOCKED ON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. So shadyrays.com and use the promo code LOCKED ON, and you'll get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. So the Grizzlies have taken a 2-1 series lead now. And, they're in control. They have home court advantage now. They've contained, for the most part, they've contained the Timberwolves' big three. And all they have to do pretty much is win their home games at this point. But they're not satisfied with just that. Ja Morant said before the game, when one of the reporters asked him, basically, okay, you want to win one of the games in Minnesota, you can get home court back. And he says, no, we want to win 2. We want to win both, and we want to send their fans home mad. So he kind of achieved this goal there. And Ja Morant, just watching him, in the last seconds, he threw the ball in the air in the final seconds, and he, looked at the crowd and, did a little chit-chat with them and let them know that he sent them home mad. So he achieved this goal there, but game 4 is still coming. Target Center is going to be rocking again. Minnesota is going to be that team. They looked home game 3, but they're definitely going to be hungry in game 4 because they're playing for the playoff lives. If they lose game 4, they're going to be down 3-1, going back to the grindhouse where Memphis will be looking to close it out. But Saturday's game 4. It'll be, an interesting game from the perspective of, just recapping some of the things that have happened throughout this series, because we've got 3 games in now. So there are some trends developing here. And one of the latest trends is Karl Anthony Towns' struggles. So here's how they're guarding him, because I asked, Finch before the game, the Timberwolves head coach, uh, how do you attack with Karl Anthony Towns when the Grizzlies play a big man on you and when the Grizzlies have a smaller guy on you? And this was before the decision to start Kyle Anderson on Karl Anthony Towns was made. And Chris Finch basically said, well, it doesn't matter because they're going to double anyway. And he was right. Kyle Anderson got the matchup. Clearly, undersized, but he's 6'9", he's 7'2" wingspan. Kyle Anderson, and I've said it a number of times, he has some of the best hands defensively on the team. I love watching him play defense. But Karl Anthony Towns had the size advantage. But anytime Karl Anthony Towns put the ball on the floor, defenders were swarming at him. Swarming. He could not get a clean look. And that's why he had 8 points. I mean, he shot 3 or 4. But he just could not get clean looks. He didn't force them. He didn't force shots. So it looked like he was tentative, but in reality, I mean, the Grizzlies, they swarmed him. They swarmed him. And I asked Taylor Jenkins about that too. Just, what are the keys there? Because what's happening is when you throw multiple guys at Karl Anthony Towns like that, other guys are out of position and flying around. And he's like, oh, it's a communication thing. It's a connectivity thing. And the Grizzlies were definitely on top, of the game in that area. And another thing from the Timberwolves side is Patrick Beverley kind of, was going at Ja Morant a little bit, especially early on in the game. And it got really noticeable when he started to, clear side. He go to a side and he tell the his Timberwolves teammate to move. He didn't want to screen, and he drive the basketball right at Ja Morant. Had some success with it early. Like I said, first couple baskets of the game, he made those. He actually had some drives and drop off passes to teammates, and he did the little too little sign about maybe 4 or 5 times in this game. Just, trying to basically say that Ja Morant was too small, wasn't doing a good job of guarding him. So after the game, I wasn't in the Timberwolves press conference because I was over there where the Grizzlies players were. But I saw the video where after the game, he was asked about going at Ja Morant, and he said it was something he took into his own hands. He likes the matchup. And here's the kicker right here. D'Angelo Russell, who's sitting beside Patrick Beverley, butts in. He says, yeah, I like that matchup too. Like he liked that matchup for Pat Bev. So they're not going to stop with that just in game 3. That's why I'm saying this. In game 4, Patrick Beverley is going to go at Ja Morant again. Patrick Beverley, now, he shot 5 of 13. So you take with it what you want from it. Over 5 from 3-point range. So if you want to just focus on the 2-pointers, he was 5 of 8 there. But at the end of the day, game 4, they're going to attack Ja Morant on defense. We haven't seen too many teams just focus a game plan around attacking Ja Morant as much as the Timberwolves tried to, especially early on in that game. It seemed like they got away from it, but that is something to look for as well. And also, we mentioned it, the Grizzlies lineup changes. Where will they go from here? Again, foul trouble kind of shifted some things around. Xavier Tillman he came off the bench, gave some good minutes in this game. It wasn't the game 3, shock, but it was really solid minutes. Steven Adams did not play in game 3 as well. So where will the Grizzlies go from here from a lineup perspective? They started Kyle Anderson in the first half. They started Brandon Clark in the second half. In game 2, Kyle Anderson started the second half and ended up getting the start in game 3. But if you look at the second half of game 3, Brandon Clark got the start. Where a lot of decisions, a lot that Taylor Jenkins has to weigh. Me personally, I think you should start Kyle Anderson because what Brandon Clark did coming off the bench, I mean, he was the boost. If you start Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. And let's be honest, right now you just can't trust the fact of Jaren Jackson Jr. not being in foul trouble. He's been in foul trouble in all three of these games, so I don't think I'm out of bounds saying that. You just can't trust saying, hey, Jaren Jackson is going to be on the court for 32, 33 minutes. You have to plan around that. Brandon Clark is your best plan in terms of when that horn blow and Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to the bench. Um, Brandon Clark's coming into the game, and that's a good substitute. As I mentioned, he's been playing, some of the best ball in the front court. So game 4 is going to be a big one. Game is called the swing game. So game 4 will be more of a stabilizing game. It'll either stabilize the fact that, okay, the Timberwolves are still, showing some resolve in this series, and it's going to make it 2-2, or it's going to stabilize the fact that the Grizzlies can start getting their bags ready to be packed for a potential series, where it's looking like right now it will be with Golden State, who just went up 3-0 on the Denver Nuggets. So it looks like we could be headed in that direction if the Grizzlies take care of business in game 4. But we thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen. But wait, before your second listen should be Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA is where the experts will take you deep inside the playoffs. Insights and analytics going on with not just all the playoff teams, but all 30 teams in the NBA. So Locked On NBA, wherever you get your podcast apps, it is available. But thank you for listening to Locked On Grizzlies and staying locked in with me, your host, DeMichael Cole. Follow me on Twitter at DeMichaelC is where you can find my content. You can also find my content on Commercial Appeal at commercialappeal.com. I've been writing a lot about each and every game, but game 4 coming up, it's going to be a big one. And of course, we will have you covered. Me and Sean Coleman will be back after that game. But thank you for listening to Locked On Grizzlies. And until next time in Minneapolis, I'll see you again.